You know that feeling, right? That big project is just sitting there, that important call you need to make, that thing you know you should be doing, but you just don't. We all do it. But what if I told you it's not because you're lazy? What if it's just a habit that you can actually break? Well, let's dive in and figure out how to beat procrastination for good. So, to really get procrastination, we're going to start with a kind of weird but totally relatable story about fear. One of the authors we looked at talks about being a kid and being absolutely, completely terrified of horror movies. You know that feeling, right? You're huddled under a blanket, peeking through your fingers, totally convinced there's a monster in the closet. But then he did something that changed everything. He completely flipped the script. So instead of that passive flight stance you see there on the left, the hiding and the cowering, he adopted an active fight stance on the right. He started sitting forward, punching the air, literally yelling at the screen. And you know what happened? The fear just melted away. He took control.
So what on earth does a kid hiding from a scary movie have to do with you avoiding your expense report? Well, pretty much everything. Because when you get right down to it, procrastination is often driven by that exact same feeling, fear.
Think about it. We don't put things off because we enjoy the last-minute stress. No way. We do it because we're afraid. We're scared of not living up to our own crazy high expectations. We care so much about doing a great job that the pressure becomes totally overwhelming, and it just feels safer to, well, not start at all. Okay, so this is a really, really crucial point. If you procrastinate, you are not lazy. I'm going to say that again. You are not lazy. It's not some deep character flaw. It's just a learned habit, basically a coping mechanism for stress. And the best thing about habits, they can be unlearned and they can be replaced. Let's get a little more specific for a second. This is the clinical definition from the Center for Clinical Interventions, and I want you to notice those key phrases. You needlessly delay something you've committed to, and you do it even though you know there are going to be negative consequences. That last part is the real kicker. It feels automatic, but it's a choice. And this slide shows that whole cycle perfectly. According to researcher Mel Robbins, every single habit has 3 parts. First, over on the left, you've got the trigger. For procrastination, that's always some kind of stress. That stress then leads to the pattern in the middle, which for us is avoiding the task. And finally, you get the reward, just a tiny little hit of temporary relief. So if we want to break this loop, we have to interrupt that pattern of avoidance. So how do we start? Well, the very first step is all in your head. It's about changing the way you look at challenges and your own ability to deal with them. It's about adopting something called realistic optimism. This is the core idea right here. And this isn't about, toxic positivity or pretending hard things aren't hard. Not at all. It's about a deep down belief that the act of facing the challenge, of struggling through the tough parts, is exactly what makes you better and more capable in the long run. This all comes from Carol Dweck's amazing work on mindset. See, a fixed mindset believes your talent is what it is. End of story. But a growth mindset? That's the belief that you can develop your abilities through hard work and dedication. A realistic optimist is all about that growth mindset. They see a tough project not as a final exam on their genius, but as a chance to learn and get stronger. Okay, so getting your mindset right is absolutely crucial, but it's not enough by itself. The next step is super practical. We have to reduce that initial trigger, the stress, by getting organized. And that means building a simple system to get all that stuff out of your head. I absolutely love this quote from productivity guru David Allen. Trying to keep every single deadline, task, and appointment stored in your brain, that's a massive source of stress. It just creates all this mental clutter. The solution is to build an external system that you can actually trust. And look, it doesn't have to be complicated. Seriously, you can start with a super basic system. All you really need is a calendar for things that have to happen at a specific time and a to-do list for literally everything else. The goal is just to get it out of your head and onto a screen or a page you trust. That's it. A tool just like this, a simple habit tracker, is a perfect example. It takes all that mental work of remembering off your plate, and it gives you that awesome little dopamine hit of seeing your progress. It makes an abstract goal like, be more productive, into something you can actually see and do every day.
Okay, you've adjusted your mindset, you've built a basic system, but what do you do when you're sitting at your desk, you feel that stress creeping up, and you have that overwhelming urge to just check your phone for a minute? This is where you need a tool to act in the moment.
This is the million-dollar question, isn't it? You're in that moment. The habit loop is starting to kick in. You feel the stress, and your brain is screaming for that sweet, sweet reward of avoidance. So, how do you interrupt that pattern?
You use something Mel Robbins calls the 5-second rule. The moment you feel yourself hesitate, you're going to hijack that habit loop by counting backwards. This simple little action actually wakes up your brain's prefrontal cortex. That's the part you use for making intentional decisions.
Think of it like a starting pistol for your brain. It interrupts that autopilot of, oh, I'll just do it later.
You are literally shifting gears in your mind, moving from that emotional, reactive part to the focused, deliberate part. You're building just a tiny bit of momentum, getting ready to launch yourself into action.
And as soon as you hit one, you physically move. But what do? It's so much simpler than you think. That's it. That is the entire secret. See, your problem isn't the work itself. It's the habit of avoiding the work. And by committing to just 5 minutes, you make starting ridiculously easy. The goal isn't to finish the entire project. It's just to start. And guess what? Research shows that once you start, 80% of people will just keep on going. So let's make this real, right now. What is that one thing you've been putting off? I want you to think about it. What's one tiny piece of it you could work on for just 5 minutes? Got it? Okay, ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,